gosh, I just shaved sides in my back of my head yesterday and it feels so much better. Oh my goodness. Puppy fuzz in the back. Business in the front, puppy fuzz in the back. Oh, it's such a stupid thing to laugh about, but it makes me laugh. Ready to begin. Let us begin. Baby, let the games begin. Let the games begin. Let the games begin. Me excited to talk about Taylor Swift? Never! Oh, okie dokie. Hello there, my parasocial pals, and welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, thank you so much for joining us. My name is Chloe Payne, and I have no idea what I'm doing. Today, we are going to combine the Taylor Swift energy with the bookish energy and talk about the Eras Tour readathon. I believe this readathon was originally created by Bookish Daydreaming on Storygraph. The creator also talks about this event on TikTok, so I will include both of those links below in the description box. The Eras Tour readathon I'm super impressed by because it, of course, spans all of the eras being represented at the tour. The idea that the creator had was cherry pick a couple of songs from each of the eras to write a prompt about. One element that I also thought was just really fun and creative about this readathon was the way in which it was scheduled. It began when the tour began in the spring, and it was originally scheduled to end when the original tour dates were going to end on, what, August 9th or something like that. The fun thing I really liked then about it feeling sort of like a living, breathing, ongoing thing, an ongoing event, just like the tour is constantly a fluctuating, changing beast. Now that the international dates have also been announced, the tour has impacted the readathon. The readathon is now scheduled to continue to go on through August of 2024, since that is how long we now know Miss Thang is going to be doing this beast of a marathon event, taking the tour all around the world for the whole next year. The readathon is also happening for the whole next year, so I really like this being sort of a thing that can be a low-key thing for you to maybe find out about now. And if you want to do any of the prompts or participate on Storygraph or TikTok, you have a whole year to jump in whenever it works for you. It's funny, actually, I wanted to do a video about the Eras Tour readathon, and I originally planned my content calendar out thinking that the weekend of July 9th would be a great time to upload this video because it would be the last month of the readathon, with the readathon originally scheduled to end August 9th. I thought that it would be good to upload this weekend because I could say in the video, hey, like there's one final month going on of the tour, or like if you're sad for the tour to be ending, well, here's something fun to be able to kind of add to, you know, your serotonin intake. There's a readathon happening and it's currently the final month of the readathon. And of course, none of us knew at the beginning of the tour that we would be getting the announcement for Speak Now and that it would be this weekend. So now I'm still uploading this video during this week that it just happens to work well for me in my schedule, but it's Speak Now weekend. Also, happy Speak Now weekend to you and yours, to those who celebrate. It's almost as if I planned it. What if I told you I'm a mastermind? I did not plan this. What if I told you that I just so happened to plan something that turned out to work out very well, but it had nothing to do with any foresight on my part? Anyway, happy Speak Now weekend. I can't wait to see everybody's reaction videos start to roll out. That is one of my favorite aspects of this fandom, and it's kind of the thing that got me into the fandom, was seeing other people's reaction videos, and the enthusiasm that they have to share is so infectious, and the context that they provide. I actually tried to make a reaction video for Midnights, and I had a really, really good time with it, and I was really, really proud of how the final product of that video turned out. And you better believe I got copyright claimed on that video, so that was fun. I look forward to trying to do some different ways of having reaction channel kind of energy on my channel, but it's a work in progress. We'll see how that ever turns out. In the meantime, I'm happy to have my small contribution to the fun online Taylor Swift enthusiasm just be making little videos like this. It's honestly probably a good thing that I didn't try to think about doing a reaction video for Speak Now, because I don't want to rain on anybody's parade, and Speak Now doesn't happen to be a favorite album of mine. So many of the songs totally iconic, of course. Like, I probably am going to cry like a little baby. Dear John. Sad empty town. Oh my god. I'm probably gonna cry like a baby to Back to December. Back to December all the time. Oh my god. I'm definitely gonna cry like a baby for Long Live. Oh, I'm hopeless. I already am weepy just at seeing the words. It says Long Live Taylor's version. Long Live Taylor's version! Oh my god, the vocals! Leave me some comments below. How is your Speak Now weekend going? Are there tracks that you are super thrilled with how they turned out? Are there new songs from the vault that are like now your absolute stan songs that you're obsessed with? Is Speak Now that album for you? Is it that bitch? Are you very personally attached to this record, or are you more like me, really looking forward to like 1989, really looking forward to Reputation? Are you terribly annoyed by fans like me who prefer the more recent albums? The YouTube algorithm considers any engagement to be positive engagement, so I welcome your upsetting comments. I'm very much just kidding. Please don't hurt me. I'm very much just sort of on the fringes of the Taylor Swift fandom, and I fear and respect the Swifties as they should be feared and respected. All right, let's redirect the conversation, shall we? The Eras Tour readathon. There are 20 prompts total. I, for this video, am going to just list 13 of them, lucky number 13. The prompts are listed in no particular order other than just whatever happened to occur to me as I was like making notes in preparation for this video. If anything, I guess some of these choices do kind of just reflect my own bias. Some of the prompts I did pick specifically because I really like the song. Some of the prompts I did only pick because it gives me the opportunity to express joy about a book that I really like to recommend. Prompt number 1 that I am going to talk about today, Miss Americana and the Heartbreak Prince. And the prompt is to read a book featuring a high school romance. A book that I could recommend that I read and really enjoyed that would work for this prompt is XOXO by Axio. It's sort of like a K-pop drama. This girl is living in California and ends up unexpectedly sort of crossing paths with the K-pop star who is sort of like undercover trying to like have a normal teenage boy life. She ends up moving to South Korea to live in Seoul with her family for a while she attends this performing arts high school where he also attends. Oh my gosh, they've been reunited. I wonder if complicated, very much in the public eye, but we're just teenagers trying to do our high school thing, K-pop romance might unfold. It's very fun. I highly recommend XOXO, and it would work great for this prompt about reading something involving high schoolers. Cruel Summer is the next one. Read a book featuring a hidden romance. Ooh, I love this book. So the book is called Catch and Cradle. Catch Cradle? It's about lacrosse. I don't know sports. Catch and Cradle is what it's called. It's by Katya Rose. It's set at a college. The girls lacrosse team has a very strict rule about not dating teammates, and it's sort of part of the lore of the team. The tea that kind of gets spilled in whispers is that it all has to do with that once upon a time one of the players was dating one of the other players and it ended badly, and so now nobody's allowed to date anybody is sort of what the goss is. But then when two of the girls start to fall for each other, how will they possibly make this work? They're both players on the lacrosse team and they're not supposed to date, but they're falling for each other. Should they try to break the policy and like convince everybody that it shouldn't be the policy anymore and that it's okay to date your teammates? Or are they gonna try and keep it secret? And how will that impact their burgeoning love? It's a good time. Lesbians and lacrosse, there's non-binary representation. It's a great book. I love you, wait, that's the worst thing you ever heard. I'm fine, I'm okay. Prompt number 3, 'Tis the Damn Season. Read a book set in December. Under the Mistletoe by Everly James. It's another sapphic recommendation. Author who writes lesbian romance books has a deadline. She has to have her new book in by New Year's Eve, but she's got writer's block. Oh no. And there's this other writer who is not published. She's just an aspiring writer, and she has so many ideas in her head, and she knows that she could just finish her great idea for a book if she could just get away and just have like a retreat environment to just focus on her writing. And so both of these women end up signing up for this retreat, assigned to the same like cabin or spending a lot of time together. They get snowed in. It's not quite There Was Only One Bed, but it's very much kind of the same elements of like trapped intimate time, getting to know each other. I'm a sucker for books about writing and books about writers and people who sort of fall in love around the context also of like their creativity. The book involves them sharing their writing with each other. It's very fluffy, but I really enjoyed it. Under the Mistletoe. The next prompt is Tolerate It. Read a book where self-love is the central focus. One of the first books that ever made a really big impact on me in my college years is a book called Authenticity by Deirdre Madden, is set, I want to say, in Ireland or in the UK. It's an author from the UK. And it's sort of the literary fiction vibe of many different characters' stories ending up intertwining. There are periods of the book where you're following the painter who struggles with alcoholism and is now trying to repair the relationship that he had with his estranged daughters. There are parts of the book where you're following this younger, like up-and-coming independent artist who has a fraught relationship from having lost her mother in the past, and she and the painter start to develop sort of like a tentative romantic relationship. What are the boundaries on this thing? How are we going to each talk about our art and protect our art, but while maybe getting more vulnerable with each other? There are parts of the book where you're following this kind of piece of shit, like businessman guy who is having a bit of a midlife crisis and starts to almost sort of live vicariously through the art world and wanting to get close to these artists, but like, what are his intentions really? It's a book that takes a long and winding path. There are parts earlier in the book where you might not be able to really anticipate how it's all going to conclude, how it's all going to involve all of these different seemingly disparate people being part of each other's lives or being part of the same story. But in the end, in my opinion, it does a really good job of tying in so many themes of taking care of yourself, establishing your own boundaries, taking time to reflect on what you actually want for yourself and for your relationships and for your career. It's a book that really effortlessly ties all of those themes in to this fictional story about these characters. It's not quite, heavy-handed in its talking about self-care or prescribing of self-care. It's not like an inspirational memoir kind of vibe. It's not a self-help book kind of vibe. It's a story where you follow characters who struggle with prioritizing themselves and who struggle with figuring out what they want and how to take care of themselves to get what they want. In my opinion, it does a really, really good job of depicting a realistic version of what it's like to be a three-dimensional person moving through the world and interacting with other people and figuring out along the way that taking care of yourself is really important. So for this prompt, I highly recommend Authenticity. The next prompt is look what you made me do. Look what you made me do. Read a book featuring a revenge plot, one that I have not read yet. The book is called Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper. Lana Turner is a different person. Payback's a Witch by Lana Harper is a book that is on my TBR for Summerween, which I'm very, very excited about. I might not get around to reading it within the specific dates of Summerween, but I will definitely be reading this as soon as I have time to get to it because I'm super excited about it. Another sapphic recommendation, these two witches who realized that they were both scorned previously by the same terrible man, the same shitty warlock, like cheated on one of them while with the other or something like that. And so these two witches hatch a plot to get revenge on this shitty warlock guy. But along the way, oh my gosh, the women end up falling for each other. Who could have predicted this? So unpredictable. Now we got bad blood. I apologize that every single time I get one of these damn songs stuck in my head, I have to sing it in the stupidest voice possible. That's very much my problem. It's me. Hi, I'm the problem. It's me. Bad Blood is the next prompt, and it is to read a book featuring enemies to lovers. I cannot recommend highly enough Guava Flavored Lies by J.J. Arias. It is set in Miami. Two Cuban women, Cuban Americans whose families have had a long-standing rivalry. They are in the food industry. Each of the families runs like a bakery, I want to say. Cuban restaurant vibes. And they just like for ages, as long as these two women have known, their families are warring clans. They are rival bakeries. They are in competition with each other. These two girls even like grow up alongside each other. They go to high school together, and their whole vibe has always been that they are pit against each other because of their families. Now they are adults and they are starting to take over sort of like, the family bakery. They're starting to make a name for themselves in like the culinary scene of Cuban food in Miami. The two of them start to really experience like direct rivalries, like each woman being really antagonistic towards each other. And before you know it, of course, that just results in furiously making out and being super attracted to each other. I don't love, frankly, reading enemies to lovers. I think sometimes it can get a little questionable in terms of like consent and falling for each other for the right reasons can be kind of a slippery slope in this trope. So I don't read a lot of enemies to lovers, but I do think that this book was one that handled it very, very well, where the bringing together of the two characters was less about anything toxic. It wasn't about trying to trick each other. It was just about, oh, now that we are actually spending more designated time together, I think that like the sparks really start to fly. I see sparks fly whenever you smile. The sparks really start to fly between the two of them when like they're at a food festival and like their tents are right next to each other. So they're sort of put into a close proximity for a short period of time, and that starts to tear down their walls a little bit of like, oh, she helped me when my fryer went down, or oh, she's actually working really hard and I can really respect like what a good job she's doing. You know, they actually organically just start to learn more about each other and like what they see and reflect on the fact that like, oh, maybe this is silly, this rivalry that our families have always had. Oh, and it's such good reading for like the food imagery. If you are the type of person who loves to read something and just feel your mouth start to water, and like as soon as you finish the book, you just can't get to an empanada fast enough. You're just craving mango. Like it's a really, really good book in terms of writing food imagery and making you really crave like, you know, a little Cuban espresso. It's a really, really good time. The next prompt is August. Read a book featuring a summer romance. This is a book that I haven't read in a really long time, but it is on my wish list of books that I plan to buy for myself in the future and reread. And it made a really big impact on me at the time that I read it, which was again, sort of like my early 20s college time. This was one of the first romances that really clicked for me. It's called Vince and Joy by Lisa Jewell, I want to say, Lisa Jewell. Vince and Joy are two teenagers who meet in like the 80s. Each of their families are vacationing in this one like kind of cabin, you know, resort in the woods kind of vibe. The two teenagers meet on vacation, fall for each other instantly. They've got like, you know, that young teenage obsession thing. They share some firsts together, if you know what I mean. Then at the end of the summer, they part ways and there's like a miscommunication. One of them said something along the lines of, meet me here if you want to say goodbye, or like if you have something to say. And the one person like sends a message that is never received. So they part ways at the end of this glorious summer, with each of them thinking that the other was no longer interested or like, you know, never followed up. I forget exactly what the miscommunication thing is, but they part ways with just this memory of this magical summer, but having to try to tell themselves, well, it was never going to work because they never met me at that last morning like they said they would, or something like that. And then throughout the book, you follow each of them individually, separately, going through their next 20 years of like, you know, meeting people and marrying and divorcing and heartbreaks and successes, not in touch and not aware of each other's existence really in reality. They constantly go back and kind of fantasize about like, man, I wonder what Vince is doing now. I wonder what Joy is doing now. And like, man, my life has just turned out not the way I thought it would. What would be different about my life if I could meet Joy again now, or if I had been able to reconnect with Vince on that last morning of that summer vacation? And I won't go ahead and tell you whether or not maybe they reconnect again at the end of the book. I'll just let you read the book and discover that for yourself. 22-year-old Chloe loved this book, and I wonder how I would feel about it if I were to go back and reread it now. I'm pretty sure that I can highly recommend to you Vince and Joy. And if nothing else, the beginning like chapters where they're the teenagers in the 80s who are just like falling in this first, you know, frantic, enchanted, obsessed with each other summer vacation love is definitely a good fit for this prompt. Next up is Tim McGraw, and the prompt is to read a book where a character falls in love for the very first time. I'm going to recommend a very short book. It's a novella. It was part of I want to say a series of novellas that were all written for like a Pride themed publishing event. The name of it is The Glow Up, and it was written by Cara Malone. It's just a really sweet little snippet of time where this young girl from Montana moves to Chicago for college, and it's her first time out in the big world. She goes to a pride parade for the first time just because she's curious, not because she's gay. I'm just, you know, trying to get the cultural experience. This is my first time having the opportunity to go to a pride parade. I better go for the educational purposes. And sure enough, she meets a woman and it ends up waking all these feelings in her, and it's her first time falling in love in general, and certainly her first time with, like, you know, her coming to terms with her sexuality. Quick little read. It's very much the charm of Chicago. If you are a person who is very charmed by Montana vibes or Chicago vibes, it definitely is a little read that captures a lot of what I love about both of those places. I want to say that she's like supposed to be in the city for just a short period of time as part of like an internship or a summer tutorial, something like that. As the summer comes to a close, it ends up bringing up a lot of those feelings of like, well, why should I leave if I'm actually really enjoying this place? And what do I love about my small town life, but what do I love about being in this bigger city with different resources, and what can I maybe bring together about both of those things? It's a good book about, like, you know, a young person starting to like forge their own path and figure out what they want within the context of also like falling in love for the first time, and what this relationship is doing for like her confidence and her ability to self-actualize. It's just a quick, short little read. It's steamy, it's lesbians, it's a good time. The glow up. The next prompt is 22. Read a book featuring characters in their early 20s. I highly recommend Chef's Kiss, a graphic novel that was worked on by a bunch of fabulous people. One of the top reads that I ended up recommending in my mid-year freakout tag video, the best graphic novel that I've read so far this year for sure. It's just a really charming little story about a group of friends who are at that stage of just having graduated from college and now trying to live in the same cheap apartment and split rent 10 ways. And everybody has to go try and find, like, you know, their first grown-up job, like, you know, just walking around with your diploma and being like, can I have a job? Does this get me a job, please? Oh my gosh, what am I doing? One of the characters was originally gonna try to go into publishing. He can't find any jobs in his chosen field. And so he ends up inquiring after a help wanted sign that is up in the window of a restaurant. And he's like, oh, well, I've always enjoyed cooking as just a hobby, but I never thought about working in a kitchen. Maybe I could work in a kitchen. Wouldn't you know it, the chef who hires him and who he then has to work very closely alongside is a charming, charming man. And they are very, very cute, falling in love with each other. It's a really, really fun read. It's got just a little dash of the early 20s malaise, feeling like you're disappointing your parents and, like, you know, having to sort of like assert your own path, and maybe it's different from what your parents wanted for you. Insecurity and, like, you know, lack of confidence of someone who is going through so many life changes and feels so young and so inexperienced, then also starting to fall for someone, and like, how is that going to impact his confidence? Oh, and another one that is just a great book for the food descriptions. This one actually also includes some of the recipes in it for some of the things that they make, and it's a book that's set during autumn. Another thing that makes it a perfect recommendation for a prompt from the Red album. It's very autumnal vibes. They're making like butternut squash soup and like mushroom risotto, very, like, you know, rustic, hearty things, and they include some of the recipes for that in the book as well. It's a great time. Chef's Kiss, highly recommend. Next one is You Belong With Me. Prompt for You Belong With Me is to read a book with a friends to lovers romance. We have reached my other Katya Rose recommendation. The name of this book is Girlfriend Material. These two girls who are going to college in Toronto, I want to say, and they're in the theater department for costume design is what they're studying. And they're just best friends. They're such good friends. They're excellent friends. They would definitely never develop crushes on each other. Absolutely not. Why would you think that? The personalities of these two friends are so clear. The one girl is very much the type of cute little like cottagecore lesbian. Her favorite movie of all time is Lord of the Rings. Also very idealistic about love. She's never actually had like a long-term lesbian relationship, and she's really pining for the type of cute little, you know, cuffing season romance that would be like a real relationship. She doesn't want to do hookups. She wants to do a relationship. And the other friend is very like goth and punk and tough, and she could definitely never fall in love. Sexy bisexual chaos vibes, gets around a lot, and is very much the type of person who thinks and says that all that she wants is hookup culture and not a relationship. Cute little innocent lesbian, wants a girlfriend, long-term relationship friend, is constantly going to the hardcore goth chaos bisexual experienced friend for advice about like, I have this date coming up and I just don't know what to wear. Will you help me? Will you help me with my makeup? Gosh, I just don't know how to look appealing. Will you help me practice flirting? kissing, pretty please? You know, they're friends, and so since they think that they're just saying that they're friends, they do a lot of like, well, it's not at all weird for friends to practice kissing with each other, is it? No, that's not weird. If you know that meme that is the two girls so clearly making eyes at each other, but like one is practically sitting on top of the other doing their makeup, that meme basically happens in this book. I highly recommend. Very charming read, very fun read. The next prompt, Invisible String. Read a book featuring fated mates or soulmates, people brought together by fate. I have not yet read this one, but I understand that it is a pretty good fit for this prompt. This is How You Lose the Time War by Amal El Motar and Max Gladstone. I'm sure you've heard a little bit about this. It's been so all over booktube, and of course there was the tweet storm of Bigalus Dickalus like fully re-recommending it and getting it on the top of everybody's lists again recently. The concept of it is kind of unique in that it's two different authors, and the whole book is letters that the two women write to each other, and each of the authors sort of wrote entirely from the other character's point of view. So Amal would write all of the letters for the one character, and Max would write all of the letters for the other character. So that's already kind of an interesting premise. And then from what I understand, it's these two women who were supposed to be like agents on opposite sides of the warring factions in the Time War, and they are writing letters back and forth to each other. From what I understand, it's very poetic. They end up realizing through all timelines, through all parallel universes, through all ways that anything could possibly have gone down amidst all this time travel, they were meant to be drawn to each other, or they were meant to have these feelings for each other. Yeah, I haven't read this book yet. It is on my TBR. I have a copy of it around here somewhere. The main thing that I know about this is the recommendations that I see from the Tumblr lesbians. The Tumblr lesbians love to quote this. The Tumblr lesbians seem to really stand this book as being very much about the type of love that will bring two people together no matter what, the type of love that was always meant to be. So maybe we could consider this to be less a recommendation from me, and I can simply communicate to you that the queers on Tumblr love this book, and it seems to be very much one that fits within the prompt of a fated romance. So do with that information what you will. We're almost to the end, and we have reached one of my favorites. It's time for Anti-Hero. It's time for Anti-Hero. And you can't at all tell that this is one of my favorite songs by the fact that I spent money on this really fun shirt and the props to be able to take this thumbnail with. Ooh, Editing Chloe, remember to put a link below for this shirt. I think that this came from Redbubble. I can't remember if it came from Redbubble or Etsy. But yeah, wonderful, wonderful purchase. I'm super duper happy with it. Because you know what? I'm an adult and I can spend my money however I want to. Anti-Hero. The prompt is to read a book where mental health is a central focus. For this one, I want to recommend, again, kind of a roundabout approach to the topic. The book is Something That May Shock and Discredit You by Daniel M. Lavery. Kind of a memoir, kind of a collection of essays, kind of snarky gay poetry. It's a very unique reading experience. I just recently listened to the audiobook. This is a book that I'd had on my TBR for a long, long time, and I sort of for Pride Month dedicated that like my goal was gonna be I'm finally gonna finish reading this. It's a cool moment to be able to like think about the differences between what an audiobook does and what the written format physical copy does. Because in this instance, I think they kind of go really nicely hand in hand. Each one is there to accomplish different things. Daniel M. Lavery is a trans man who also runs a couple of different podcasts and is very experienced in terms of, you know, being on microphone. The nice thing about the thing with the audiobook is that you can hear it all very much with the tone and the humor of the author's like intention. It feels very much like, you know, you're getting exactly how the author intended it to be shared and presented to you in terms of the humor. But it is not at all a like sequential order of events. Here's my autobiography. I am going to tell you from beginning to end what happened. It's much more sardonic than that. Reads kind of more like a newsletter, which I also subscribe to Daniel M. Lavery's Substack, and the pieces of writing that appear in my inbox from subscribing to that newsletter are very much the same sort of experience as what the book is, in terms of reading it from cover to cover isn't necessarily the move, I think. Enjoying sort of each chapter, each little interlude as its own experience, and reading it kind of more like you would read poetry. A collection of poetry is meant sort of to be more enjoyed as like little individual moments that mean different things, and maybe you come to it and then step away from it and then you come back to it, and let each sort of reading session be its own thing, as opposed to trying to like connect a thread from like page 1 to page done. And for that reason, I do think that I'm going to be buying a physical copy in the future so that I can like sit and digest the words and have the experiences of like each individual chapter, each individual section of writing impact me differently. Essays that have different themes about like being a queer person growing up in like the evangelical Bible Belt, or separating from your family that you become estranged from, or starting to identify that you're trans and figuring out what that's going to mean in terms of making changes with your relationships in your life. It touches on all of those themes, kind of satirical. It's very sort of poking fun at itself as an experience, in much the same way as my recommendation of Authenticity was about saying, here is a book that is ultimately kind of about characters finding self-love, but it's not a traditional sort of self-helpy vibe to get to the expression of those ideas. In the same way, Something That May Shock and Discredit You is a book that I feel is very much about mental health and is very much about reflection and therapy and sorting out of one's own values and being able to stand firm in a world where maybe identifying for your own values is something that you have to do for your own mental health. It's a book that approaches all of those themes, but again, very much not in a sort of traditional self-helpy vibe, being overt about those themes. It's much more, here are some sort of smart alecky reflections that a trans guy did after transition to sort of piece together how the last few years had impacted his brain, is what the book feels like. And for me, that's a great mental health time. That's a theme that makes a lot of sense in that context. And last but not least, guys, lucky number 13, I had to make Mastermind. And the prompt that they included is to read a book where the main character does a lot of scheming to get their way. I am a Mastermind stan. I love this song so much. That was one of the defining moments of the reaction video that I did, was just how hard that song hit me. That song hit me hard and continues to be a song that is very, very important for me. And it's been surprising, frankly, as time has gone on, to realize how few people feel the same as I do. Like, there are so many people that I talk to who even feel like Mastermind should be removed from like the Eras Tour set list. So in the same way that the song is kind of an acquired taste, apparently, a song that means a lot to me but may not be for everybody, the book that I'm going to recommend for this prompt is a book that does not have great reviews on Goodreads, that I have never heard anybody else talk about, and it might absolutely just be an acquired taste of mine. It is called Making Love to the Minor Poets of Chicago, and it is by James Conrad? James Conrad. This book is about complicated, stupid, immature, but talented poets in an academic setting in Chicago. And there's a project that is coming up that is going to require the commission of a poem for like the most historic thing that's ever gonna happen. And we follow the journey of several potential candidates for writing this thing. People are like falling in and out of love with each other. There's a lot of like silly relationship drama. There's people taking themselves so seriously. There are such pretentious characters in this book. It's such a love letter to Chicago. It's Lake Michigan, it's windy tunnels through the buildings, it's humidity in the summer, it's everything that you think about when you think about Chicago is encapsulated in this book for me. Maybe I just have a sentimental attachment to it from having been around a lot of academic assholes in Chicago. Maybe I just have feelings about artists trying to make their way through this world and the ways in which this book brings together ideas of like art and capital. Maybe I'm totally wrong, but this is a book that means a lot to me and that I certainly think fits this prompt very, very well. If you want a book about some messy, imperfect people trying to accomplish something through manipulation and machinations, and the whole time that they're doing it, each person is convinced that they are entirely right and that they're doing it for their art, their capital A art, then this is the book for you. I absolutely love making love to the minor poets of Chicago. What were some of your thoughts on some of the prompts that I selected for today's video? Have you already read any of the books that I talked about? Are there prompts that you're particularly excited about? Like you hear the prompt for 22 or for Mastermind, and there are other books that immediately come to your mind that you would like to recommend. And of course, the tour itself. Do you have any hot takes that you would like to share? Are you one of the people who's really upset that the original Eras Tour set list did not include more representation for like debut or for Speak Now? If you're watching this in the future, like during and beyond the release of Speak Now Taylor's version, has the set list changed at all in the context of Speak Now Taylor's version being out? How do you feel about the changes to the set list? If there have been any, do you have any theories about any other future changes that might happen to the set list? It makes me feel anxious. I upload new videos on this channel every single week, so I hope that you will subscribe. Once we hit 1,000 subscribers, I will do something nice and cringy on this channel to say thank you. We are getting closer and closer to 1,000 all the time, and I'm super duper grateful for that. So thank you for subscribing. I think that's it. I really appreciate you joining me for this video. It's been super duper fun. I do not have many people in my day-to-day life who are at all aware of or interested in anything having to do with Taylor Swift. So everyone in my personal life just has to sit there and be patient while I gush about these things. You're helping them. You're helping the other people in my life by giving me an outlet for these feelings. The people in my life, thank you for your service of watching this video so that they can get a little bit of a break. I really appreciate you taking the time to check out this video. Until next time, take care of yourselves and take care of each other. And now it is time for the end card. It is time to click on all of the links. It is warm and sweaty in this room. I should turn on the air conditioning after this. Ah yes, that hit song, Turn on the Air Conditioning. She wears short shorts and I turn on the air conditioner. She's cheerleader and I turn on the air conditioner. Oh my god, I'm filming this several days ahead of time and I just can't believe that a new piece of Taylor Swift music is going to be out in just a few days. I hope that future me is okay and has recovered from whatever crying was surely done.